During special attacks, press the block input after the first hit to slow down time. Releasing the block input precisely when Hawkeye releases the arrow grants a perfect release bonus. Activating a perfect release bonus grants a dialed-in passive, increasing duration of personal debuffs inflicted by arrow strikes by 10%. All dialed-in passives are removed when failing to activate a perfect release. This has a max stack of 5. All basic attacks will pause all bleed debuffs on the opponent for 1 second. Heavy attacks will inflict a slow debuff on the opponent for 10 seconds. This is not paused by basic attacks. The final hit of all special attacks have a 100% chance to inflict a bleed debuff over 10 seconds. Each bar of power spent beyond 1 grants +1 debuff and +5 seconds duration. If a special attack has a perfect release, the arrow attack becomes a guaranteed critical hit. The special attack 1 has a 100% chance to inflict power drain, removing 75% of a bar of power. If the special attack 1 has a perfect release, there is a 100% chance to inflict a suppression debuff as well, reducing the opponent's combat power rate by 50% for 8 seconds. The special attack 2 has a 100% chance to inflict a 25-second fragility debuff. Attacking a fragile opponent grants increased critical damage rating and reduces block proficiency by 50%. If special attack 2 has a perfect release, inflict an additional fragility debuff. All bleeds triggered during the special attack 3 gain up to 200% duration based on Hawkeye's critical rating. Based on Hawkeye's critical chance, bleeds triggered during this attack can be critical bleeds, multiplying the bleed's potency by Hawkeye's critical damage multiplier. Getting a perfect result in the Special 3 minigame grants maximum critical rating for this attack. With an awakened Hawkeye, landing a critical hit with an arrow shot will cause any personal bleed debuff triggered to become a critical bleed, multiplying the bleed's potency by Hawkeye's critical damage multiplier. Additionally, each bleed debuff on the opponent greatly reduces their physical resistance. Let's first discuss Hawkeye's utility. He has the ability on his heavy attack to place a slow debuff, and this slow debuff lasts for 10 seconds and does not have a cooldown, which means you can place it over and over again. This is going to make him ideal for champions that can either go unstoppable or can evade, so he's going to have a lot of utility in that department. He also has a really good power drain mechanic. He will power drain 75% of a bar of power on his special attack 1, making him very useful in fights against Symbiote Supreme, Hyperion, or Vision Arcus, anyone who's going to be gaining a lot of power. He also has a fragility buff on his special attack 2. This will increase his critical damage rating, allowing you to see larger yellow numbers. And finally, of course, he has his bleed mechanics, which do have a very good chance of becoming critical bleeds. Getting the most out of the buffed Hawkeye will take some practice and take some timing. He has a brand new mechanic in the game called a dialed-in passive. To activate this, when you hit with the first strike in either your special attack 1 or your special attack 2, you will then hold block. You will then have to release block at the perfect timing to get a perfect release and give you a dialed in passive. Now, there are some visual cues to go with in order to get this perfect release. The first one that you're going to notice is that the tip of his arrowhead will shine, kind of like sparkle in the light. This is when you need to release that block in order to get the perfect release bonus. I have noticed that if you wait for that shine to appear though, you will usually release late. So what I do, another visual cue you can use with Hawkeye is wait until he hits with that first attack, hold your block, and then he will draw the bow to full. When he draws the bow fully, he will hesitate for a second, then you will see that shine on the arrowhead. If you start to release your block when he finishes that draw, so he's in full and then he hesitates, if you release your block right when he hits that full draw, usually you will release your block as soon as that little sparkle appears and you can hit the perfect release. At least that's how it has been working for me. Your timing might be a little bit different than mine depending on how fast you are with your thumbs. The special attack 2 is the same. He will kick them. This is when you need to hold block right after that kick. Then he will flip back in the air. I have noticed on this one it's a little bit harder to get the timing down, but if you release your block when he is at the apex or the very top of that arc as he's jumping, you will usually hit that perfect release. Again, you will see a little sparkle. You have to just time it right before that sparkle appears to release your thumb and your hold on block to get that perfect release passive. Now with the dialed in passive that you gain, you will increase the duration of your bleed effects by 10%, and this stacks up to 5. So you can have an increased time of 50% on each of these bleeds. Remember also though, if you miss one of your dialed ins, if you hold block and then don't release perfectly, if you release early or late, you will lose all of your dialed in passive. So again, this is going to take some practice and precision. It kind of really bodes well with the spirit of playing Hawkeye. Now, his special attack 3, you will have to focus on hitting that 20% bonus, that little green bar on the 5-star and 6-star Hawkeyes. If you hit this bonus area, it will greatly increase your chances of getting critical bleeds on the opponent once the animation ends. Now, you will put 3 bleeds on the opponent. Hitting this green marker will increase greatly the chance to get those critical bleeds. So it's really important that you try to hit that. Again, for me, I have noticed if I start to tap the screen right before the little marker gets to that green section, I typically hit that 20% marker. If I wait till it's right on green, I'm going to miss it almost every single time. As far as his awakened ability goes, Hawkeye does not have to be awakened in order to be a good champ. But let's say he is a solid, very good champ with him unawakened. With him awakened, he becomes a god tier champ because each of his critical arrow strikes will result in a critical bleed on the opponent. Again, this is going to increase his damage greatly as well. All of his bleeds will decrease the physical resistance of the opponent, and at his highest sig, this will superiorly greatly decrease physical resistance on the opponent, which is going to allow him just to hit a whole lot harder with everything he does. Now let's talk about combat strategies for a moment. In a very long fight, I find that I rotate through special 3s just over and over. I typically will not use my special 1 or special 2, even though those special 1 and 2 attacks would increase the duration of my bleeds on that special 3. These special 3 bleeds are about 24 seconds long because they do gain 200% duration, so it's enough time to work your way back around to another special 3. So you can pretty much guarantee you're going to have anywhere between 3, sometimes 9 bleeds on the opponent from that special 3. And again, if you're hitting that 20% marker every time, there's a very good chance that most of these are going to end up being critical bleeds, and you're going to have a lot of damage coming out onto the opponent. So again, I will just kind of rotate special 3, special 3, special 3, and you will find that if he is awakened, you're going to be doing a lot of damage with your basic attacks now, because each of those critical bleeds, or each of those bleeds I should say, is going to decrease his overall physical resistance. So you're going to be hitting very hard. Also remember that his basic attacks do pause his bleed effects for 1 second with each hit, so you can sustain those bleeds for a very long time. Now let's say in most of your fights, let's call it a medium fight rotation. Again, you're going to want to go for that special 3 attack. You're going to try to hit that 20%. You're going to get as many critical bleeds on the opponent as possible. Then you are going to rotate back to a special 2. Throwing the special 2 and hitting a perfect release will result in 2 fragility debuffs, increasing your critical damage rating, so you're going to see larger yellow numbers. Now you're also going to have 5 bleeds on the opponent. I would then rotate back to a special 2 again. Again, now you should have 4 fragility debuffs if everything was timed correctly. And finally, I would rotate to a special 1. At this point, firing the special 1, you should see a very large amount of damage, and the fight should pretty much be over. If you are looking to do just a short fight, you really do not need the special 3. You can just rotate between your special 1 and special 2. I would start with a special 2 and then just fire off my special 1. So again, gaining those fragility debuffs and then using that special 1 to do my damage. At this point, if you're hitting those perfect release timers, and especially if he's awakened, you're going to be doing plenty of damage for a short fight. Overall, the new Hawkeye does take a little bit of getting used to. It does take practice, so do not get frustrated if you don't get it right off the bat. Go into some practice fights. But once you have mastered his abilities, and especially once he is awakened, you will have access to an absolute critical bleed god in Contest of Champions.